I never ever want to go out with a Chinese man again. And in this video, I'm gonna tell you why. So please do comment in the comment section whether or not you kind of relate to this stuff. Anyways, let's get to the story fast. Hello, I've seen your channel, and since you are like telling stories about girls going out with Chinese, I've always thought about sending my story. So here I go. Everything started last year in September, October, when I was single and I decided to download Bumble because I wanted to have a relationship. One day I opened the app and I had a message from a Chinese saying like he knew me already and that he had been many times to the restaurant that I used to work. He saw me also in the streets around his company, either near supermarket and so on. He was very assertive, or he was very precise on the places he mentioned, and I was very curious because all of his pictures in the profile of Bumble were faceless, so I couldn't really get to see his face, but everything really matched, even the name of the restaurant. So I was very curious, and then he told me the first time we talked, it was when I arrived to the restaurant with 5 of my colleagues and we wanted to open a whiskey bottle, but you told us that it costed 800 peso, and we had a little bit of an argument. At the end, it was a must because they needed to pay 100 peso in order to be seated or to purchase the bottle in that restaurant. While I was taking care of them, they made me a lot of personal questions, which I didn't took any attention. I didn't pay any attention to that, since many of the clients are just like that. And by the way, that day I thought he was really handsome, but nothing happened. I just continued with my life until I read the message in Bumble. And because it was a little bit out of normal, obviously I did remember that story, and I got so excited about it because then I knew it was him, the guy that she previously saw in the restaurant, whom she had that argument. So it was that Chinese in Bumble. I was so excited because I thought it was very handsome. We were talking for like 5 days, and the truth is that I was quite shocked and excited because literally it was like destiny, Yuan fate, meeting after months of that situation, and that he found me almost everywhere, in the supermarket, in the restaurant I used to work, just around his company, etc. And we ended up talking. Obviously, he was so charming. He would be telling me things like, oh, I'm so lucky finally I could get to see you and talk to you, and that I was very beautiful, that I was different to all the Mexicans that previously he had been meeting. And he told me so many sweet, beautiful things to my ears. After all, he finally invited me to go out. He started talking in English. His English level was so great since he had been to the university in Canada. So guys, these stories over here are not just like, normal Chinese around. Those stories happening in this channel are from Chinese that are coming to work here in Mexico, dealing also with our business subjects. They are working either in Huawei, now in so many enterprises that are relocating or are kind of expanding to our market. So they are not just any Chinese. They have like master degrees, PhDs, they are CEOs, etc. So just listen clearly. Anyways, his English was great because previously he had studied university in Canada. And by the way, we didn't have any problem regarding communication. I feel like he always tried to impress me. Since before we were like officially boyfriend and girlfriend, every time we went out, he asked everything from the menu. And he would be like, I don't know what to order, so let's just order the whole menu. That, like, honestly, instead of liking it, I really thought it was a waste because I was thinking he is taking like to the extremes. And besides, guys, I am also against this like waste. You guys know this because we have been talking about this situation of like things that I like and I dislike. And one of the things in China is like whenever they have guests and they're hosts, they try to just over impress you. They try to do like excessive attention, just like inviting you to dinner and having the table full of plates that people, even them or guests, will not finish, and there's a lot of waste of food. So I don't feel there's a need to do such things anymore. Please, 2025, if you are listening to this video, avoid waste. Either waste of food, waste of clothes, waste of makeup, like waste overall. I really dislike these channels that portray like mukbang and they do this big you know what I'm talking, just for the views. It's just like it's so low, you know, like you cannot do anything more than just do waste for people to watch. Anyways, so this girl also didn't enjoy that show about like being treated like a princess, supposedly because he was ordering the whole menu just because he didn't know how to order, or upon her because he was trying to impress her. But this didn't end up she didn't end up liking this aspect. Instead, she thought it was such a waste. I do agree with that. Like, seriously, thinking so clear, like who goes to a restaurant and orders the whole menu? I mean, if you take it home and give it to the rest of your family or friends, maybe that is somehow okay. But I am not thinking that someone will go to a date and afterwards will be asking the food to be taken for delivery. I don't think that is, I'm not sure about that. I don't think that's a possibility. So what about the rest of the food? Anyways, after 3 days, he invited me to a concert. And at the end, he asked me officially to be his girlfriend. Clearly, I said yes because until that moment, I didn't see any red flags coming, apart from the waste of food. Well, we have been to a few more dates after that, and the moment arrived when he first invited me to his home, or his flat, or his place. I was super nervous because obviously we are adults, but I am not silly, and I thought that it was very possible and probable that something will happen between us, you know, having some intimacy for the first time. Since I was going to stay to sleep there, he was very kind and he asked me whether I needed some stuff to be comfortable. He bought for me some like slippers, shampoo, some skincare, a brush for my teeth, and anything that I could need for the night. So I went there. I was so beautiful, put together, and he was going to arrive to pick up me. So I will go from my work, the restaurant, at night shift. And finally, when he picked me up, he said that his boss suddenly had made some plans to go to the disco, like to the nightclub, and that he needed to go, so because he couldn't say no to him. He's an economist and he works for a very, very big company, Huawei. His boss was a very, very important person in Latin America. Like, he has a very important position. So I try to understand that. Since I know how Asian deal with business, therefore we went to his home and he left me there by myself. It was my first time that I was going to stay there, and at the first very beginning I felt a little bit offended, like by myself, just there. I was considering whether it was okay to stay or to leave, but at the end I just relaxed and I stayed there. I took a shower and I just went to bed. He arrived later that evening, and of course nothing happened. We just went directly to sleep. Next day we talk about a little bit regarding I didn't like what happened, and that I was trying to be comprehensive. It ended up happening what it had to happen. So you guys must understand what it had to happen, or they ended up being together. And it was one of the most traumatic experiences of my whole entire life. I was going to the gym on an everyday basis, taking very good care of my health and my diet. In that moment, I didn't have any issues regarding my self-esteem. I was okay because I was seriously putting some effort. And upon myself, I had a very beautiful body. But suddenly, after our intimate moment, he told me, "Are you sure you're going to the gym? You seem so fat. With the clothes, it doesn't seem like it, but once you are naked, it shows." The truth is that I couldn't believe what he was saying, and I was so ashamed. And I just had to laugh because of shame. You know, that nervous laugh. I tried to act like if I didn't care, like if his comment didn't affect me, but of course it did. Since before, I did have some traumas and problems. I just let it go. Not just that, I believe it, and I started thinking I was the fattest girl in the whole world. I stopped eating that much, and I lost so much weight while I was with him. After 2 weeks, he just suddenly said he had a trip to a beach somewhere around Mexico. I'm not gonna be that detailed since she wanted to keep some details. The truth is, I thought it was strange because how could one go to the beach for business? It's so awkward. Never in my life I listened to that. Anyways, I thought it was fine, and obviously during his trip he suddenly ghosted me. It was about 5 horrible days that I didn't know nothing about that one. And I was really unaware of what was happening until he went back. Just one day before, he sent me a message with a photo, a picture. You could see that there was a slipper. Obviously, it was from a woman. And I responded with a simple, "Oh, haha, and there's something in there." After he called me right away, telling that slipper was from the client's daughter, which obviously was not the truth, but I once again let that go. Yes, I am very silly, girls, do not judge me. I came back from the trip and he came back from the trip and he went to my home. He told me, "Oh, stay at my home this night, take some clothes, and please just prepare because you can stay with me a few days." That day, he was super nice. He cooked dinner and was so romantic. He served wine and some steaks. We put some romantic music until the late hours of the night. He told me he was thinking about marrying me. Since in China, you have to formalize a relation, and that's the only objective of having one. Can you listen that the "I want to marry you" thing is coming now, just like in the past few stories? He was expecting me to follow him all around the world for his work, and that I didn't have to take any responsibility, that he will take all the bills and he will be in charge of myself, that I was going to be living a very good life with him, and that I shouldn't be renting my apartment no more, that I could right away move with him. True to be said, I was quite surprised, since upon myself it was quite rushed. I mean, I am not that young, so I was very honest with him. I told him that we could live together, but I will still keep my job and I will still keep my apartment, since I sometimes would like to be there by myself. I was scared that the relation was going too fast. The honest truth is that I was scared that the relationship could end like sooner or later. And I had experienced these things before, so those like insecurities make me a little bit unsafe on this one. Now I realize that I did took the correct decision. Next day, I decided to just take care of his stuff, which were on the luggage that he previously brought from the beach business trip. And his luggage was just in the middle of the like living room. Suddenly, something happened. I wanted just to fold his clothes and wash it all. And you guys wouldn't imagine what I found, would you? I found condoms. It was horrible. To be honest, my blood went cold. I was so shocked for a moment. I decided to do nothing. He was still asleep, so I started packing my stuff little by little, and I tried to be as quiet as possible in order to just leave silently. But guess what? He woke up. He was talking to me, trying to call my name, but I was ignoring him. I was still picking up his stuff. He was nonstop asking me what happened to me until he was quite awkward, and I decided to tell him what had happened and what I discovered in his luggage. He was so nervous. He started saying whatever kind of excuse and 1,000 lies. At the end, he convinced me to stay. I was a silly one because from the beginning, he was having a coworker, a Mexican girl, whom also was texting him so inappropriate messages whenever she wanted. And somehow I believe it was also a lover. Those texts were in Spanish. He once showed them to me for me to translate them to him. And then once again we fought. He will say like, I don't like her. It's just a client. We have to take good care of clients. Whenever he went out with his boss, always his followers in his socials will like increase. Instagram, and suddenly those girls were like, workers of the nightlife in bars or dancers, like sexy dancers, since his boss and him loved taking their clients to karaoke, restaurants, in bars, wherever they had girls. That week we had a fight. Every week we had a new fight because I was finding one thing after another. And obviously, every time after a fight, he was trying to convince me to stay with him, buying me expensive gifts, jewelry, perfumes, shoes. But to me, nothing of that mattered. There was a moment when I was like, I'm so angry, and he will just continue buying me more and more expensive gifts. Obviously, this didn't work. And I wasn't going to stay quiet, in China, there are many women that live quietly, but it's hard for Latinas to just stay quiet. They have just a different temperament. I couldn't be just quiet, receiving gifts after one fight and another. And therefore, I work. I can buy those things for myself. It was New Year's Eve, and we were having some good days. We were talking a lot about doing things right and that we wanted that the relationship work. So we end up planning a dinner to one of the best restaurants in the city. We arrived to our reservation to the restaurant, and the restaurant suddenly canceled us without any advice. previous advice. Of course, it was New Year and it was very impossible to look for another place. Casually, one of his friends, co-workers, called him and invited us to spend Christmas Eve at his place, and that his girlfriend will be with him. We ended up buying some stuff and arriving to the place. The vibe was super strange. The girlfriend of that buddy was quite weird and a little bit rude with me. We all talked in English, but suddenly they decided to exclude me from the talk and started talking in Chinese. There wasn't a TV to watch nor music, and the dinner were just dog heads. Everything was awful. At the end of the night, I ended up talking to his friend. And it was when I realized, because he told me, that his girlfriend was in reality his lover, and that his wife of this Chinese fellow, Chinese colleague, was living in China with their children. This was just really shocking to me. So I decided I was not going to tolerate the situation no more. I was completely out of my head. I just stayed quiet, but I didn't care no more. Didn't care that he was with his friend or her lover, just right in front of us. So I raised my voice, was in a very serious tone, and I said, I wanna leave. Let's go. I am very bored and I'm not gonna tolerate these kind of situations. Everyone stayed so shocked because they thought that I wouldn't be reacting in such a way. We left to our home and we had the biggest fight in the whole relationship. I told him that I couldn't understand why he would accept this kind of friends or to tolerate this kind of situations, especially that he wanted to make me part of such scenarios. I was so tired of week after week just dealing with his unloyalty, and he was just kind of not being careful for my feelings. At the end, he will try to buy me gifts and more gifts. I had to break some plates and glasses there because I was furious. I had tolerated so much. He got so scared that night because I was just being so wild. We ended up sleeping together and he was hugging me, trying to make me calm. What a new year, right? The next day, we didn't talk about the subject and we just pretended like nothing happened. The truth is that until that moment, I had to think a lot of stuff and I was so uncomfortable being there in his flat, pretending, etc. The next 3 days, we slept in different rooms until I took the courage to say that I had to leave to my home. That night, I packed all my stuff, my television, my clothes, and even my dogs, which I have previously taken to live with him. Finally, we arrived to my apartment. He wanted to keep talking. I don't understand why, if the relationship had already ended. I just told him, stop, I'm leaving. I entered the door and he said bye. And I just went straight to my apartment. I was super sad, tired, and just overwhelmed for everything. At the end, I also felt somehow peace because I was just suffering day after day with him and losing respect for myself. The last I know is that same night, he sent me a message and he told me he arrived to his place, that I shouldn't be worried for him. The truth is that I didn't even care to answer him. I deleted the conversation, his name, his number, and everything regarding himself, like his contact in other socials. I haven't seen him or known about him since then. And he also hasn't been to my restaurant since that time. Thanks God. That was the worst experience in my life. And that was just lasted 4 months. Upon my perspective, it was such a long time. I will never ever want to go out with a Chinese again. Oh, this story is just like, I mean, I am not that surprised because let's be honest, this is common in China. There's like Xiaoshan, like the third one, which is like the lover, and it's common among Chinese businessmen, and it's common among rich men. So I wouldn't take it that. I mean, it's not very surprising, but one after another story, you can listen that these Chinese men are coming over, not just taking the Mexican market, but they also taking the Mexican women, and not all of them are taking the women as per make them their wives, but just their lovers. They're xiaoshan elsewhere, abroad, overseas. What do you guys think about the story? Let me know in the comment section.